Okay, picture a Stickman character drawn on a whiteboard. Let's say he's a teenager, just trying to walk down the hallway at school. But his movements, well, they seem stiff, maybe a bit shaky, and his balance is just slightly off. He's navigating his everyday life with cerebral palsy. So let's dive right into this explainer and look closely at what our Stickman is actually experiencing, why it happens, and how understanding his journey can completely change the way we look at inclusion.
To really grasp this condition, we first need to break down the name itself. According to the CDC, cerebral simply means having to do with the brain. And palsy, that means weakness or having problems using your muscles. So you put those together, and you have a condition that affects a person's ability to move, maintain their balance, and hold their posture. The really important thing to know here is that it's actually not an issue with the muscles themselves, but rather how the brain is communicating with them. Think of a developing brain like a giant, complex electrical switchboard. Cerebral palsy happens when the wires sending signals to the muscles get tangled up or interrupted. This is caused by abnormal brain development or damage, usually before or right around the time of birth. For a long time, people thought this was mainly due to a lack of oxygen during delivery. But recent clinical research actually points out that genetic variants account for a substantial number of cases too. Basically, the switchboard just gets wired a little differently right from the start.
Section 1. Symptoms vary by person. Everyone's journey is unique. Cerebral palsy is really an umbrella term. That means our Stickman's experience isn't going to look exactly like someone else's. In fact, right now there are 17 million people globally who have cerebral palsy. It is literally the most common childhood motor disability in the world. With numbers that high, there's a very good chance that some of your own peers in your school or your community are experiencing this condition right now.
So how do those tangled wires actually show up? Well, they manifest physically in a huge variety of ways. Based on data from the Mayo Clinic, common symptoms include things like difficulty walking, unsteady balance, and shaky or jerky movements. One of the most common forms actually involves spasticity, which just means the muscles are constantly stiff. Now, for some people, the symptoms are incredibly mild. Maybe it's just a slight awkwardness when they run. But for others, it can mean trouble holding objects or needing lifelong care and a wheelchair for mobility. It really varies.
Section 2. Understanding beyond physical movement. Seeing the whole person.
But listen, the physical symptoms are really only half the story. Teenagers with CP often face massive emotional hurdles because they might move or communicate differently, sometimes due to how it affects their facial muscles. But it is absolutely crucial to understand that they are equally intelligent, creative, and capable. A physical difference or a speech difference, that absolutely does not equate to a cognitive limitation. Our Stickman is just as clever, just as funny, and just as ambitious as anyone else in the room.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever misunderstood someone just because they moved or communicated differently? It's kind of human nature to make snap judgments, right? But being a teenager is tough enough without feeling isolated. It's really up to us to look past the physical differences and actively include classmates who might seem a little different at first glance.
Section 3. Therapy and Assistive Technology, Tools for Independence.
Managing cerebral palsy is all about building a comprehensive support system to bridge that physical gap, especially as young people transition into adulthood. Step 1 usually involves physical therapies like stretching and muscle training, just to improve mobility and reduce pain. Step 2 involves physical mobility aids, like walkers, canes, or customized wheelchairs. And Step 3? That's where things get really futuristic: digital assistive technology.
Accessibility experts at organizations like ReciteMe highlight some truly amazing digital tools that completely level the playing field. We're talking about text-to-speech software for communication, eye-tracking devices that literally let users control a computer just by looking at the screen, and adaptive keyboards. These technologies allow teenagers with CP to study, surf the web, and express their creativity completely seamlessly. It's a real game changer.
Section 4. Different abilities, same value. Building an inclusive future.
With the right medical care, the right assistive tech, and strong social support transitioning into adulthood, people with cerebral palsy go on to achieve absolutely amazing things in their careers and their personal lives. Different abilities, same value. That's the core message here. True friendship, patience, and understanding are just as important as any physical therapy or piece of cutting-edge technology. When our Stickman character is surrounded by supportive friends who value him for exactly who he is, those physical barriers, they don't seem quite so high.
So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to take away from this explainer. How can you make your own school or community more inclusive starting today? The next time you see someone moving or communicating a little differently, remember the stickman, remember the switchboard, and be the person who reaches out. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.